Hi, I'm Linda with Beautiful Thrift Homemaking, and I'm reading through a vintage cookbook that was published originally in 1917. It's also a story. It's following the first year of the lives of a young newlywed couple, Bob and Bettina. And Bettina shares her recipes, her meal plans, and a little bit of her homemaking tips to some of her friends. And so we discuss a couple chapters each time that I film an episode, and we look at the recipes in detail. So let's get started. We're in the month of March now, and we are working through, as I said, this is a reprint from Dover Publications. The book is called A Thousand Ways to Please a Husband, and that's a fun title. What I wanted to say is the storyline begins as the newlyweds are coming home from their honeymoon and having their first meal together in their new home in the month of June. And so we're in March now. So we're very close, as you can see here, to the end of the book because I have only this much left. And so we'll finish up in May. Okay, so this is chapter 123, and then we'll read 124 also. Chapter 123, the Dixons drop in for dessert. Come in, cried Bob to the Dixons. You're just in time to have dessert with us. Bettina, here are the Dixons. Do sit down, said Bettina, and have some Boston cream pie with us. Frank won't need any urging, said Charlotte. Our dessert tonight was applesauce. And Boston cream pie, whatever it is, sounds too enticing to be resisted. It looks a little like the Washington pie my mother used to make, said Frank, only that wasn't so fancy on the top. Washington pie needs whipped cream to make it perfect, said Bettina, and as I had no whipped cream, I made this with a meringue. Dessert with the neighbors, said Frank, laughing. Charlotte read me a suggestion the other day that sounded sensible. A housewife had introduced a new custom into her neighborhood. Whenever she had planned a particularly good dessert, she would phone a few of her friends not to plan any dessert for themselves that evening, but to stroll over after dinner and have dessert with her family. Wasn't that an idea? It might lead to cooperative meals. We haven't done our share, have we? We should have telephoned to you to have the main course with us tonight. Say, Bettina, I like this Boston cream pie. It's what I call a real dessert. And so we have here Bettina's recipes for the menu was lamb chops, creamed carrots, baked potatoes, rolls butter, baked apples, Boston cream pie, and coffee. And we have Bettina's recipes for the creamed carrots, the white sauce for the carrots to make them creamed carrots, the baked potatoes, and her baked apples, plus the Boston cream pie, including the filling and the meringue that she put on top of it. So I'll share those with you in just a jiffy. Okay, thank you. Now we're going to be in chapter 124. We're going to read that, and then we'll go back and read all the recipes from both chapters and talk about what happened in the chapters. Chapter 124, Ruth passes by. Said Ruth, walking into Bettina's kitchen late one afternoon. What is that? What is it that smells so perfectly delicious? Lamb stew, said Bettina. Bob is particularly fond of it, and we haven't had it for a long time. This is such a cold day that I thought lamb stew would taste very good tonight. And what are you making now? Soft gingerbread. It's just ready to pop into the oven, and then I can go into the living room with you, and we'll visit in state. Don't, Bettina. I'd much rather talk in your shining little kitchen with the kettle bubbling on the hearth, only it's a gas stove, and you won't let it bubble long if you think of your gas bill. Kitchen Confidences. What a name for a nice little domestic science book. Well, we'll stay in the kitchen then and exchange kitchen confidences. Where have you been this afternoon in your big woolly coat? Downtown to the market, and I did get something besides food. a small purchase that you advised me to buy. A box of labels. Plain label stickers, to stick on the boxes that I put away, out of season things and all that. I've noticed how neatly all your stored away things are labeled. It saves so much time in finding things, and a label looks better than writing on the box, for the labels are white, and very often the box is dark pasteboard, and pencil marks are difficult to see. Well, goodbye, Betty dear. I must run along now. Bettina's menu that night consisted of lamb stew, applesauce, rolls, gingerbread, and coffee. And we have here Bettina's recipes for the lamb stew and the soft gingerbread. Okay, so next we'll discuss the actions and the chapters, and then we'll look at the ingredients and the instructions for making all the recipes in these menus. Okay, so let's discuss chapter 123. The Dixons drop in for dessert. So the Dixons are a couple, Charlotte and Frank. They are friends, and Frank works with Bob at the office. He is a bit older than Bob, and Bettina has a special relationship with Charlotte because she's been guiding Charlotte in homemaking. Even though Charlotte is older than Bettina, she didn't have the early life that gave her lessons in how to do any homemaking, and so Bettina's been guiding her in that. And they've dropped in. They're going to have dessert together. And an interesting thing that Frank talks about is an idea called cooperative meals. And I thought that was interesting, and I'm not sure if he's talking about living in a commune or anything like that, but this is 1917 and times were a bit different. So for what he meant by that, I don't know, but it made me think about a progressive dinner that I had with friends one year. We did this around one of the holidays, and we had appetizers at one home, the main course at another, and dessert at the third. And we just drove from one place to the other as when it was time to move on in the meal. And that was really fun, and each of us just had to prepare the one portion that, the one part of the meal that was assigned to us. And of course, everyone has to prepare their home for the company and be ready to welcome people in and such. It was fun, and I hope that I can do something like that again. I noticed that there's other names for that. Sometimes it's called a safari supper or even a round robin. So here Frank says, hey, we've eaten dinner at home. We should have had you come to eat dinner with us, and then we could have enjoyed dessert with you like we're doing now, but at least we would have shared the dinner portion with you. So that was fun. And the recipes in this chapter are for the creamed carrots to make two portions, because again, it was just Bob and Bettina eating dinner with one another. So for two portions of creamed carrots, you take 1 cup carrots, 1 tablespoon flour, 1 tablespoon butter, 1/2 cup milk, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 1/8 teaspoon paprika. Wash and scrape the carrots thoroughly, cover with boiling water, and allow to boil until tender when pierced with a knitting needle or a fork, about 20 minutes. Drain and serve with sauce. Carrots may be cut into 3/4 inch cubes or any fancy shapes and will cook in less time. To make the white sauce for the carrots, melt butter, add the flour, salt, and paprika, mix well, gradually add the milk, and cook the sauce until creamy. Now that's something I think I'd like to try, because from my experience, this would be very different from any way that I've had carrots before. So I think that'd be kind of fun to give that one a try. Now the baked potatoes for 2 portions calls for 2 potatoes. She says to wash them thoroughly, and with the sharp point of the knife, make a small cut around the potato to allow the starch grains to expand. Bake the potato in a moderate oven until it feels soft and mealy. when pressed with the hands, about 45 minutes. Break open the potato to allow the steam to escape. Turn the potato about in the oven to ensure evenness in baking. Okay. So I know there's different ways to do the baked potatoes to prepare them before baking, but you do always have to pierce them in some way, or else they could just pop open and make a big mess in your oven. So I tend to just take the knife and jab at them in different spots. Here she had you take the knife and make a small cut around it. So she had a different method. And then some people will have you butter and foil wrap the potatoes before baking, and others just stick them in the oven the way they are. All right, Bettina's baked apples, 2 portions, 2 apples, a half a cup of sea sugar, which is a light brown sugar, 1/2 cup water, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, a few grains of salt. Wash and core the apples. Mix the sugar, cinnamon, vanilla, and salt and fill the cavity with the mixture. Place the apples in a small pan and pour a little water around them. Bake 25 minutes in a moderate oven. You know, I love apple pie, but I'm not that much of a fan of pie crust. And in fact, I'd rather not eat it just because of the carbs, right? So I'm wondering if maybe I should try baked apples. She has several recipes for these kind of apples baked this way. Sometimes she'll put a marshmallow in with the cinnamon sugar mix, and in this case she didn't. But she has several recipes for this, and it'd be kind of a nice change to give them a try. Next, we have the Boston cream pie. I was really happy to do a little research on the Boston cream pie, and I don't know why that is, just that a few years back, quite a few years back, I had a recipe from Country Living magazine, actually very long ago, 2008, I believe. Yes. February of 2008, Country Living magazine had a recipe for a Boston cream pie. And you can see what it looked like. Layered cake with a filling and a chocolate glaze. Now, I have taped over part of the cake so you can't see all of it, because I put the vanilla bean pudding and the chocolate glaze recipes on the top there so I could fit it all on one page and have it all together, because I like to keep them in my page protectors in a spiral notebook. So that's the way I used to always keep my recipes, and I still have a lot of them like that, arranged that way. So I made this one year, and I thought it was absolutely very special. So I decided I would look up a little bit about the Boston cream pie. And yes, it is obviously a cake, not a pie specifically. The reason for it being called a pie is simply that back in the day, there was a round baking pan that pies were made in, and so therefore, whether it was a cake or pie, it came out that round way, and people would just call it a pie. Now, this particular recipe was developed by a French chef in Massachusetts. There was and is a very famous hotel there called the Parker House, and in 1856, the chef developed this sophisticated dessert, and it has been popular ever since. Desserts used to be much more simple, and in this one, you see there's 3 different components. There's the cake layers, the sponge cake layers, the filling, which in this case, this recipe here was a vanilla bean custard or pudding, and then there's the chocolate glaze. And in our book, instead of using the chocolate glaze, Bettina is topping hers with a meringue. So now Massachusetts State has the Boston cream pie as its official dessert. And when I heard that and found that out, I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what the official dessert of my state is. I know my state flower, and um, I just wondered, well, I've never heard of an official dessert for California. And when I asked my AI app to tell me what my official dessert for California is, it actually misled me because it told me that it was Bananas Foster, or as it said, Banana Foster. And I questioned it and I said, why is that? Bananas aren't really grown in California on any large commercial scale. They can grow in some parts of Southern California, but you don't see very many groves of bananas in California. And so I questioned it, and I started thinking about what would be a proper dessert for California. And I came up with some ideas that seemed more fitting to me. So I was really struggling with this idea. And then a few days later, when I did a little bit more research and started looking into this again, because I wanted to make the banana foster, or the bananas foster, at home and give it a try if it was my official dessert of my state. And I thought, I'll get the recipe. So I was looking up on using AI again to get the recipe that I wanted. And I did end up making it. However, at that point, it told me that it indeed was not the state dessert of California, and then that California does not have an official state dessert. So I just wanted to tell you that funny story and kind of give you a cautionary tale about using AI and expecting to get accurate information. Okay, so at this point anyway, that's where we are. I did make some bananas foster. Ends up being kind of a bananas are cooked in butter and brown sugar and served over vanilla ice cream. So I gave that a try. But let's look at Bettina's Boston cream pie, the official dessert of the state of Massachusetts. For 6 portions, 3 tablespoons butter, 8 tablespoons, 1/2 being sea sugar or light brown sugar, 1 egg, 1/4 cup milk, 7/8 cup of flour, 1½ teaspoons baking powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla. Cream the butter, add the egg, mix well, add the sugar and mix thoroughly. Add the milk alternately with the flour and baking powder. Mix thoroughly. Add the flavorings. Bake in 2-layer cake pans fitted with waxed paper in a moderate oven for 20 minutes. Spread the following filling between the layers. Okay, a moderate oven, we've learned, is 325 to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if I look at my recipe from Country Living 2008, I would see that it also has the butter, sugar. It has 2 eggs, teaspoon of vanilla. It has 1 1/4 cups of cake flour. And it has the baking powder. It has salt and milk. And so it is a very similar cake recipe. All right, now for filling. 7 tablespoons of sugar, 3 tablespoons flour, 1/8 teaspoon salt, 1 egg yolk, 1 cup milk, 1/2 teaspoon vanilla. Mix the sugar, flour, and salt. Add slowly the egg yolk beaten and the milk. Stir well. Cook 10 minutes in a double boiler, stirring occasionally to prevent lumping. Add vanilla and remove from the fire. When partially cool, spread part of the filling over 1 layer of the cake. Allow to stand 5 minutes and then add more filling. Allow to stand 2 minutes. Place the other layer on the top. Spread a meringue over the whole and place in a hot oven long enough to brown it delicately. And for the meringue, you use an egg white, 1/8 teaspoon salt, 2 tablespoons sugar, 1/8 a teaspoon of baking powder. Add salt to the egg, beat until thick and fluffy. Add the sugar and baking powder and beat 1 minute. Okay, so hers is going to have a lot different look than the one that I have a recipe for, because hers has got the meringue on top, but it does have a vanilla flavored filling, which sounds kind of pudding-like. And this one is a vanilla pudding in the recipe I have from the Country Living magazine. It is a vanilla bean pudding, homemade pudding, and then a chocolate glaze. All right, so very fun, very fun recipe. And indeed, I think it is a sophisticated dessert, and I think that's one thing that I really enjoyed when I did make it years ago, the time that I did make it, is that it was very interesting to eat. And I think that part of the reason that we can really especially enjoy something is when there are contrasts. And this has some nice contrasts. Okay, nice textures. All right, so that was chapter 123. And we're going to go on now to chapter 124. Ruth passes by, and she smells a good lamb stew that's going to be for dinner on a cold night. One of Bob's favorites, and it is good to sometimes remember to make a favorite dish of a family member or husband, isn't it? And especially in the winter when it's cold. I like the fact that here's another friend of Bettina's who has been influenced by Bettina's homemaking tips, and Ruth is telling us that she went downtown and did some shopping, and one thing she got were some label stickers for boxes for storage. She wants to be orderly that way, the way Bettina is, and it's easier to find things when they've been labeled and clearly labeled. So that was a fun tip. And then Bettina's making a gingerbread for her dessert that night. Here's the lamb stew recipe for 4 portions. 1.5 pounds of lamb from the shoulder, 3 tablespoons lard, 3 cups boiling water, 1 small onion, 2 teaspoons salt, 1/8 teaspoon powdered cloves, 1 cup tomato, 2 medium-sized potatoes, 2 tablespoons rice, 1/2 cup of diced carrots. Wipe the meat with a damp cloth and cut into 2-inch pieces. Place the lard in a frying pan, and when hot, add the onion cut fine and allow to brown. Add the meat and brown. Add the boiling water to the meat and onion and cook 1 minute. Pour all of the contents of the frying pan into a saucepan and let it cook slowly for 1 hour. Increase the heat a little to allow the stew to boil occasionally. Add the potatoes cut in 1-inch cubes and the diced carrots. In 20 minutes, add a cup of canned tomato pulp or fresh tomatoes to the stew. Add the seasoning, the salt and the cloves, and cook 10 minutes. This allows 2 hours for the entire stew. If at this time the stew does not seem thick enough, mix 4 tablespoons of water very slowly with 2 level tablespoons of flour. Stir thoroughly and pour slowly into the stew. Allow to cook 2 minutes and serve. That actually sounds very tasty, although I think I would rather use a different cut of meat than lamb, a different type of meat. I've never developed a taste for lamb. All right, so soft gingerbread. This is her recipe for 12 pieces of gingerbread. 1 cup molasses, 2 tablespoons sugar, 1/3 cup butter and lard, 1/4 cup warm water, 1 teaspoon of soda, baking soda, 2 teaspoons ginger, 1 teaspoon cinnamon, 1 teaspoon salt, and 2 cups of flour. You're going to cream the butter and lard. Mix the sugar, molasses, and warm water. Mix well. Mix and sift the soda, ginger, cinnamon, salt, and flour, and then add it to the first mixture. Beat 1 minute and pour into a well-buttered pan. Bake in a moderate oven 25 minutes. Serve hot or cold. A moderate oven, remember, is 325 to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so I also remembered that I had an old gingerbread recipe. This one's from 1870, so this one predates the 1917 recipe. This one is one that was in a newspaper in California, and it is made with the same kind of ingredients, except that this one has more spices. It has the addition of cloves and nutmeg, half a teaspoon each of those, and then this one is going to be baked for 30 minutes at 375. Served warm with whipped cream is how they suggested it. And I've made this before, and it was very moist and tasty. So I don't know what you think about a gingerbread cake or a gingerbread. Soft gingerbread is the way Bettina describes that. Well, I'm going to let you go. Those were our chapters for this episode, chapter 123 and 124. We're moving along in the month of March. I'll see you again. We have, I think, a couple more episodes just to get through March. And since in my world, when I'm recording, April is coming up quickly, I'm going to need to give you 3 more episodes in order to finish with the month of March. So I'm going to try to record back to back in the next couple days to get us through March so we can keep up with the time that I'm in when I'm recording and match it with what's in the book. All right, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed some of the information from these 2 chapters and that you're having a good time with your homemaking, and know what a blessing that you can be through your efforts to your family. Thank you. See you again soon. Bye-bye.